Hello, you awakening wonders. What a glorious show is ahead of you if you stay with us. Wherever you're watching, we only do the whole show in its entirety, unexpurgated on Rumble. If you're watching us on YouTube, click over to there around the 20-minute mark, because that's when we start really kicking into some serious news and some heavy, heavy truths. Trump arrest! Trump arrest! It's all part of the spectacle. Trump arrest! Trump arrest! They've got justice by its testicles. That's what's happening. Is Trump's arrest just part of the meaningless distraction that prevents us from forever addressing systemic corruption? Or is Trump a new martyr? A new martyr that, if allowed to rise phoenix-like, would rescue us all? Let us know in the chat what you think about that, because we'll be responding to your questions, particularly from a member of our locals community. We'll be chatting to you in there. We've got some fantastic guests coming on. We've got Brianha Joy Gray, who was Bernie's former press secretary. And what I'm going to ask her about, Gareth, on-screen assistant, is I'm going to ask her, do you think that there was a sort of an emergent rise in populism around 2016? We know when Bernie was running to be the Democrat leader, when Trump was on the rise, that the Democrat Party decided to crush within its own ranks and to double down on centralized authoritarianism, and that we could have a different type of politics. Did you know this? I didn't know this. 1 in 8 Bernie Sanders voters migrated to Trump. Some of them just sat perfectly still. They did nothing. However shocked you think you are by Trump's impending arrest, you are not as shocked as Fox look.
We have just gotten word former President Donald Trump has been indicted.
What was that gasp? I thought I heard, and then I thought I heard the S-H-I-T word, and then I thought I heard, A lot of reactions in the background. That sounded almost, I would say, climactic, conjugal, coital reactions.
Of course you thought that.
That was like, I don't even know what emotion that's conveying. Let's have a look at how it was conveyed elsewhere on the mainstream media. After all, part of our function on this show, as well as building a movement to meaningfully respond to systemic corruption, is to analyse mainstream media reporting to see what tropes and tricks they get up to. We're going to be talking about more than whether or not these charges are, you know, trumped up, whether or not it's a misdemeanor that's being turned into a felony. We're going to be talking about more than whether the Steele dossier that was funded by legal fees by the Democrat Party, or campaign funds, you know, for legal fees, making it a highly comparable case. We're going to be talking about more than just the minutiae. We're going to be talking about the philosophical undergirding of this case and why it's happening in the first place. With it being 2022 and all, how come the mainstream media and the Democrats can't get beyond Trump? How come they're not yet willing to address the problems that led to Trump's rise? We don't care here on Stay Free with Russell Brand whether you love or loathe Trump. We believe in your right to freedom. We believe in decentralized power. We believe in your right to live freely as who you are, whoever you are, wherever you are, and that Trump and his sort of the immense juggernaut of power that he has generated is being resourced from somewhere. We're going to be looking at some of his propaganda materials and much of the propaganda material used to bring him down. We're going to be citing Michel Foucault, Noam Chomsky. We're going to be having a hell of a time, and still a little bit of time for winky jokes. That's what we call them in our country, as well as looking at the rising inequality that leads to these kind of political movements. But before any of that, let's have a look at the mainstream media. And if you're watching us on YouTube, remember to click over to Rumble eventually, because we're going to do a story about, as usual, I mean, it's you know, there's a bit of British reporting on AstraZeneca that just makes you sigh. It makes you sigh with the recognition that the whole time you were right, and that what was revealed about power during that period of time is still playing out and it's still not being addressed. But first, let's have a look at the mainstream media reporting on this story.
Tonight, security in New York City is ramping up. Less than 24 hours from now, Mr. Trump is expected to depart Mar-a-Lago, arriving at LaGuardia Airport before his historic and unprecedented court appearance in Lower Manhattan.
Really making it, what, grandiose, historic, unprecedented.
Is a word you're hearing a lot at the moment. They love it, the press, don't they?
What's not unprecedented is the use of the word unprecedented. There's a strong precedent for that. They keep on saying it, don't they? But when, this is what most people think, I suppose, is when you know that it's ultimately, or at least initially, a misdemeanor to spend campaign funds in that way. It's like shady, isn't it? But they're trying to escalate it to a felony. It also feels like this can't be the genuine energy behind this, can it? It can't be. Oh, what? What's happened? Oh, they spent campaign funds for hush money for Stormy Daniels. Is it Stormy Daniels or Stormzy Daniels? Stormzy, the UK grime artist. That would be a much better story, let me tell you. Like, it's not genuine concern about illegitimate action, is it? It's obviously an attempt to derail Trump's ongoing successful campaign, where astonishingly he's up to 30 points ahead of Ron DeSantis, in spite of Ron DeSantis becoming something of a darling of the post-Tea Party territory that Trump emerged from. What we consider to be an interesting aspect of this is, of course, the inadvertent martyrdom of Donald Trump. Your own Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "The martyr cannot be dishonored. Every lash inflicted is a tongue of fame. Every prison a more illustrious abode." Let's see how the mainstream continue to martyr Donald Trump.
On Tuesday, Mr. Trump will spend the night at his Trump Tower apartment, already protected by Secret Service and an enhanced NYPD detail. Along busy Fifth Avenue, barricades have been set up as far as the eye can see. There's also
as far as the eye can see.
That's an exaggeration.
Are they still going beyond where even the eye can see? We just will never know. If only we had some kind of magnifying device, the kind of magnifying device that I use when reporting on this story, that makes everything seem much worse and much more important than it actually is.
Growing press here from around the globe. They are mixed in with tourists that are flocking to
This is brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Around the globe. Yeah, it's the news.
Yeah.
I mean, it is interesting.
Also, it says people are flocking, but that could also just be people going shopping.
Look at these people dressed in white with bag straps over their shoulder. One woman so astonished by Trump's impending arrest, she put a hat on.
the region. The police presence here also only expected to grow in the coming hours. A carefully
His presence only expected to grow. So it's like everything is about the amplification of the story. We talk a lot about the spectacle that is generated by the media, don't we? And it's in evidence here. This is something we can talk to Joy Brianha Gray about, is that both sides are participating in the creation of a spectacle that prevents meaningful democracy or the redistribution of power ever taking place. We're not even talking about the redistribution of wealth. We're talking about the redistribution of power, the ability for you to control and run your own life. You'll love this quote by John Baudrillard, and if you've heard of Baudrillard at all, I don't want to be presumptuous, you might have heard of him because, you know, he inspired The Matrix and all that sort of stuff, although he somewhat disavowed that. Check this out when thinking about that hysteria and hyperbole that you've just witnessed in that news report. Baudrillard says, silence is banished from our screens. It has no place in communication. Media images and media texts resemble media images in every way, never fall silent. Images and messages must follow one another without interruption. But silence is exactly that, a blip in the circuitry, that minor catastrophe, that slip which on television, for instance, becomes highly meaningful. A break laden now with anxiety, now with jubilation, which confirms the fact that all this communication is basically nothing but a rigid script, an uninterrupted fiction designed to free us not only from the void of the television screen, but equally from the void of our own mental screen, whose images we wait on with the same fascination. That there is no time for reflection, there is no time to feel, that you are continually deluged with imagery and distraction and with hysteria, the ongoing carnival around Trump. It's been oft said that since 2016, even the ongoing condemnation of him on outlets like MSNBC and CNN and all of the fake news media that he would disavow amplified his success, benefited him as much as it benefited them. In a sense, they are in an ongoing pact, Trump and those that decry him. They require him, he requires them. I know loads of you think that Trump is the anti-hero that he purports to be, and maybe he yet will be, but we do have a 4-year term in office by which to evaluate the principles that he ran on and how they were executed. Let us know in the comments if you think Trump is the real deal. Let us know if you think that anyone could make a difference within a system as corrupt as this one. Certainly much of his rhetoric is potent and powerful. We'll have a look at this, a bit more of this mainstream propaganda that's, plainly anti-Trump. Then we'll look at Donald Trump's response video, and you'll see how he is just so masterful at managing his side of the narrative. Let's look at the mainstream propaganda.
Coordinated security effort by the NYPD, court officers, U.S. Marshals, and the Secret Service.
What are them badges for?
Stickers.
Oh, actually, I quite like that. Like, did you have a sticker album as a kid? Panini, silver foil ones? Delightful.
From Trump Tower down to the courthouse in Lower Manhattan, it's about a 4-mile drive. Secret Service.
Bloody enthusiastic, this geezer, isn't he? Every single aspect. What's this about the journey that Trump will go on?
Yeah.
To the courthouse.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Showing like, oh, that's a good route. No, I think you should probably drop down there, mate, use Broadway. That's ridiculous.
This motorcade expected to lead the way. Visible will be nearly 35,000 NYPD officers ordered to be in uniform.
Amplifying it.
35,000.
That's an army. There shouldn't be 35,000. Haven't they sacked them all for not taking their vaccinations?
They're back now.
Right, come back in. We've got a new propaganda campaign in town. Allegedly. That's very interesting because when you think about how January 6th has been reported on wherever you stand on that issue, whether you think of it as a demonstration or an insurrection, it's becoming increasingly plain that this sectarianism within United States politics and media is beneficial to centralized power. I feel, and have felt for a long time, that you should find people that you politically or culturally disagree with and be really, really nice to them and give them a big cuddle. That way, perhaps we can form new and meaningful alliances against this kind of hysterical propaganda. Although I will say, the mainstream media reporter, he's so enthusiastic about it, I'm starting to like him. And they're not all bad in the mainstream media. We've got a mainstream media journalist coming on later because we saw him respond to those riots in France. He was so brave. He was standing in the middle of a riot, doing his best. We could only assume he was Australian, and it turned out he actually was. He'll be on the show a little bit later. Only an Australian will be so brave in the face of such violence.
And ready for deployment starting at 7 a.m. Tuesday.
You see the preparations being laid out here.
That's what it is nothing's happened.
No, it's nothing's happened. It's like, at this moment, it's like a royal wedding in our country. It's
yes,
kind
it
of the
is like a
equivalent.
royal. It's ceremony.
Yeah.
It's ceremony. Do you think that? Let us know in the chat and the comments. It's being treated like a ceremony, that you have to inflate the egregiousness and seriousness and the severity of Trump as a character in order to justify it. And it is even, it's got some of the same, very good observation, Gareth, it's got some of the same paraphernalia, the crash barriers, the reports, the punditry. What will he do? What will he wear? Look at, some crowd are already gathering. It turns out that a lot of the people were wearing the same dresses that Disney princesses are wearing in some weird coincidence. That was at William and Kate's wedding.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, some of the people were wearing dresses that Disney characters were wearing. In fact, it was one of the things that made me believe in conspiracy theories, which I don't, because I insist on using facts and highfalutin quotes to tell news stories. But if you look at the number of people at the royal wedding that were wearing Disney princess dresses, you'll go, is this real? Like, you know, when you see, like, the Simpsons predict stuff. You know, the Simpsons, like, the Simpsons predicted Trump and all of that kind of stuff. They're always predicting things on the Simpsons. That's what they do.
No, I know, yeah. Well, and comedy and stuff.
It's mostly the predictions. It's just predictions, really. So this is like the royal wedding. It's a ceremony. It's like in a sense, it's about from their perspective, the bringing down of the tyrant. From the other perspective, the creation of a martyr. Certainly, Trump's rhetoric is powerfully anti-establishment. Should we watch a bit more of this? I mean, every frame of it's enjoyable.
You're enjoying it, aren't you?
I'm enjoying it, but I really want to see Trump's response. Do you want to see Trump's response? Let us know in the chat. I'll do what you tell us in the chat, especially if you're on locals. Click on that, join our members community.
For blocks around in terms of barriers, barrier trucks, and increased enforcement that's only going to ratchet up in the days to come.
Everyone's been told, make this sound as bad as possible, like the people involved in the legislation and the prosecution. Make this sound as bad as possible. If it is really, really serious, this hush money to Stormy Daniels and the misuse of campaign funds, then I tell you, the Democrat Party ain't going to look good, because you know they're up to all that kind of gear. Allegedly. I don't have any evidence of that, so I better press allegedly.
Come Tuesday afternoon, the courthouse here in Lower Manhattan expected to be the epicenter of this historic indictment. Now, the road's open now, but expect this area to be shut down and under heavy security. Once through the doors at 1 Hogan Place, the former president expected to...
Hey, boy, him in from the side. Whee, here he comes. How did he even get in there? He's defying gravity. Everything. The use of the word epicenter. God, Gareth, we could spend all day watching. This is an amazing piece of reporting, because at worst, what is happening is Trump used campaign money to pay hush money. What about, like, all the Hunter Biden stuff? What about Hunter Biden's connections? Like, Hunter Biden's not being prosecuted. Because, like, say, like, someone who I respect, like Jon Stewart, he would say, the law is the law. But if the law is the law, then you've got to apply it to everyone. And, like, you know, and beyond these kind of misdemeanors being amplified into felonies, what about, like, international criminal courts prosecuting war criminals? If there really was something called justice, you would have to totally dismantle all of these systems. So what you can have instead is the facsimile of justice, the performance of justice, the rhetoric of justice. And this theatricality plays, I believe, into both sides. The Democrat Party and the centralist establishment have made a calculated gamble that this is ultimately going to work for them. They must know the risks, that this is going to create a martyr in Trump, that this is going to amplify his voice, that this this plays into his narrative, that this allows for the creation of like amazing videos of Trump standing in the rain like Batman fighting against evil and injustice. They must know all that, and they're doing it anyway. So I guess, or are they just idiots? Do you sometimes think we give them too much credit?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we do. They are idiots.
Head to the 15th floor, where he will face the judge.
It's unnecessary
That's
detail at
hyperbole
this
on
point.
every level. We are right, don't you? Sometimes, because like sometimes I get called like a far right.
Frequently now.
I'm
yeah.
always getting called far right, and like far right for me, that's actual Nazis. That's like far right. It's not conservative or Republican or Tea Party or Libertarian. That's like you've gone out, you've got some tattoos, you've got an outfit, and
Boots.
you hate some of the world's most but definitely boots, Gal. Boots day one. Actually, you could sneak them into your wardrobe when you're still claiming to be a liberal.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, we ain't wearing them. I don't know. Like, but far right. That's you've got like that's too far. Far right.
Oh yeah.
I'm against far right. Actually, I think that the vulnerable people of the world must learn to love one another, that we should be looking to form new kinds of alliance, and that you should be able to express yourself culturally and sexually in a consensual context, however you want to. Other people's religion is none of your business. Other people's racial identity is irrelevant, that we must all come together and confront centralized power. I think most people think that. I think most people think that we must come together now and form new alliances. But let's start creating polls. Let's start creating a movement. Let's start using our membership forum to poll people, to get their information, to create a new manifesto, not where I'm going to try and run for government or anything like that, but where we will support selected candidates.
I guess that's what his point now, isn't it? And a lot of the kind of, I guess you could call it propaganda or whatever's coming out, is that he's saying that there's now the establishment and the anti-establishment, and what he represents is the anti-establishment.
Yeah.
And that's, as we kind of know.
Well, he sort of does. That's difficult to deny, even using Martin Gurry, the Revolt of the Public's analysis, that the terms left and right are irrelevant now. Now what you have is the centre and the periphery, and he is a peripheral figure, which seems somewhat ludicrous because he's a billionaire tycoon, but rhetorically he is that. Rhetorically he has the ability to say things like they're not going to do anything because they're all tied up with big pharma, big business, corporations. He's able to say that. But later in the show, please God, if we have time, if this mainstream media clip doesn't keep yielding so much content, we'll be looking at some of the things that happened under Obama's presidency, Biden's presidency, and Trump's presidency. And you'll be astonished to learn that all of those administrations benefited the ultra-rich, benefited the elites. That's not about them as individuals. Forget them as individuals. Systemic corruption will not permit the kind of radical change that's required to decentralize power. Forget redistribution of wealth. Think of redistribution of power so that you have power in your own life, so you have meaning in your own life, so that who you are can be freely expressed within reason.
Judge, just as any other defendant would. He's expected to be fingerprinted, but will not be handcuffed. And at this
So why do you need an image for fingerprints and handcuff? This is the most overproduced thing I've ever seen. It's like the opposite of how we do shows. Me, please, will you look at these papers? No, I'm not. I'm looking out the window. It's bluebell season. This thing, there's an image for, I know what a handcuff looks like.
point, it remains uncertain whether or not he will be getting a mugshot. After his hearing, Mr. Trump is expected.
These words like unexpected, uncertain, like things that they just basically, we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
There's some crash barriers out. There's going to be a trial. They're making it sound worse than it is because they want to bring down Trump as an opponent rather than address the problems that led to Trump in the first place. Systemic corruption, a Democrat Party that's been hollowed out and supports corporate elites. They're not going to do anything about that because they can't do anything about that because of the way they're funded. So they're going to keep banging on about Trump the whole time, even though they know that that elevates and amplifies his message. They've made the calculated risk that they're going to be able to somehow get through this, either by incarcerating him or making it unacceptable for him to run. So that's the way they're rolling the dice. They're certainly not going to do anything about big pharma, certainly not going to do anything about lobbying, certainly not going to do anything about insider trading, certainly not going to bring about a peace deal in the war between Russia and Ukraine while the military-industrial complex continues to benefit. All those things are off the table. So I guess what we're left with is theatre and spectacle. So the division shouldn't be between people that think Donald Trump is the answer and people that think that Donald Trump isn't the answer. We should find a new accord, a new agreement. Those of us that think that centralist politics is utterly corrupt and will never deliver anything more than further corruption.
To fly out of New York and return to Mar-a-Lago.
I have to see one more helicopter shot of Mar-a-Lago. I'm going to go there on a golfing holiday. I mean, it just looks like what a treat.
No wonder he's going back there.
I can't wait. If I was, I'd be in that pool. Is it a holiday resort? Or is it just his house?
That can't be his house.
I've seen it on the news so many times. If it's his house, he wouldn't have that car park. It's an holiday parking lot. I'd go. It looks absolutely delightful.
Is that where you're going next?
Going to Mar-a-Lago. Going far, me and some of my far right buddies. Going to Mar-a-Lago.
Capping off a moment as much momentous as it is pure spectacle.
Admitting it.
Literally admitting
the meaning is a spectacle. In fact, we're exaggerating this right now.
This is something, obviously, that the whole world is going to be watching.
George joins us now from outside.
More George, have you not said everything you've got to say on this subject, you lunatic? Let's see, should we have a look at what Donald, that's the guy,
yeah.
What he said in, that's him, I've seen him before somewhere, doesn't he own a big tower with his name written on it? Mr. Donald, Trump, that's the guy. Yeah. He much more efficiently conveys a message. You've probably seen this before. I think the very best bit is when he says, and if you can't afford campaign funds, do not send anything. That bit, I nearly cried. You keep that for you and your family. Joe Biden's wasted all your money. You're going to need it. Those of you that are rich, that's thanks to me that you're rich and brilliant decisions. Like, how can you say that so close to each other? It's such an incredible manipulation. And I'm not saying that pejoratively. What a brilliant piece of oratory. What an excellent understanding of the situation. My only reservation is I don't think that anyone, forget the moral evaluation of Donald Trump as an individual. You can, I don't care how extreme you are. You might think he's Jesus reincarnated. You might think he is Satan embodied. What I'm saying is unless there is meaningful systemic change, no one can make any difference. Focus on that. Focus on that. Not the hysteria, not the spectacle. Oh, yeah, hold on a minute. The Republican Party is still going to be funded in that way. These kind of Joe Biden is like doing speeches from inside the White House going, I'm doing my best to stand up to Big Pharma. You're the president, for God's sake. Plainly, the system is so turgid, so intransigent, that meaningful change cannot be enacted using its machinery. Let's have a look at Donald Trump, though. Let's look at a true master orator at work.
We are now officially a third world country.
Is it? Because officially, there's like someone that officiates that. Okay, America, third world country now. It's not like it's not a league, is it? It's not the Major League Baseball. It's not the NFL for third. I'm afraid you've just been relegated now into third world. Do you think we can get up to second world if you make everywhere a bit more like Mar-a-Lago?
No president in the history of our country has been subjected to such vicious and disgusting attacks.
I can think of at least two that got shot in the head. What about that geezer got shot in the head when he was driving through that?
Not as bad.
Not as bad, not nearly as bad. What about didn't Jackie Onassis try and put him back together like a sort of a human jigsaw? Wasn't that work? What about Abraham Lincoln, who was shot in the back of the head while he was trying to have a pleasant night out? Those are a bit worse. I don't know. Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments.
But they only attack me because I fight for you. It's very...
That's populism.
Great line.
They only attack me because I fight for you. Now, I want to see, though, some policies there. Because there are things like meaningful capping of drug prices, not the kind of crafty drug capping. Meaningful on environmental issues, rather than when a train crashes and spills chemicals everywhere, basically doing nothing about it. Shutting down insider trading. Ensuring that neither political party can receive donations from big corporations. Wouldn't it be amazing? The release of Julian Assange. What about that? What about that? Doing things that are radically anti-establishment. See, that's what I want. Let me know. I just want to know. And a lot of you have certain views on the pandemic, the lockdowns and medications. You know where Trump is at. Beautiful vaccine, beautiful vaccine. And you've got to incorporate all the information. I'm not telling you what to think. It's not my job. I don't think I'm cleverer than you. I know that I'm not. I just want to make sure that we don't fall into a kind of an emotional momentum that hasn't been well evaluated.
Simple. They can't buy me and they can't control.
Gareth, I've got to stop this now. Oh. He's just begun. Right, let's do this like that guy in mainstream here. We can officially confirm Donald Trump has begun his journey from Florida to New York. Well, he could be sat in the plane seat now. He could be sitting with it back or up. Do you think that he's got the headrest up? Do you think he's got like an antimacassar on the back of the thing for his hair oil? He's begun the journey from Florida.
Snacks, maybe?
Yeah, I can see that. I reckon Donald Trump's... some people eat like...
Well, speculate then.
All right. I imagine that he's probably having a snack now and probably eating it in that sort of cocky way that some people eat nuts and carry on talking to you, sort of like this kind of thing. Hey, what you doing? And they sort of maybe drop a nut like as if they'd got a Tic Tac dispenser, using their own little fist as a Tic Tac dispenser. Yeah, he's probably using his fist as a Tic Tac dispenser right now on the plane.
Yeah, good.
Speculating.
You could do that.
I could do that. I can speculate. I can just say stuff that might be happening. Can we see him? Is there mainstream media coverage of it? Can we see, like, is there, I bet someone, there's a shot somewhere of a Donald Trump getting on an airport, on an airplane, going up some stairs. And will he be able to get all the way up them, unlike the current incumbent of the White House, that poor old doddering, staggering sod, always looking like he's going to get blown over by a propeller at any moment. Yeah, see if we can we'll carry on watching Trump's thing, but we'll say, we're going to get you now live footage of Donald Trump going up some stairs or walking across some asphalt. Look at that. Someone says on our chat, Barry John Fox says he's drinking a milkshake watching a Stormy Daniels video. Oh, I don't think so. Too soon. Is that a milkshake? And what shook that milk, baby?
And that scares them beyond belief.
Beyond belief. Beyond it. This is where belief gets you. Well, it's beyond that. Belief can't go that far.
Since the very beginning, I've shunned the globalist special interest donors who have made a fortune off of destroying our country.
That's something that could be checked. Has he shunned the globalist special interest donors? Because that'd be good if he has. Can we check that? Because has he? I mean, if he has, I mean, look, I could be I'm persuadable. I'm nothing if not persuadable. Hold on a minute. There are only a certain amount of resources that we've got, and this is breaking news. If you're watching us on YouTube now, you've got to flick over to Rumble, because we are going live to Fox News. We're going to use their coverage. What the hell? We'll hijack it. Look at this. This is Fox News now. There he is. He's traveling by car. I mean, it's like OJ, isn't it? It's so exciting. He's going to that's simply a man going to an airport, but it's really dramatic. And there is even, if we see a white Bronco in there, that's really going to lift the whole tone of it. Can we hear what are they saying? Can we hear their audio?
President, but we showcased so many different types of rallies and speeches of Donald Trump, and this one is entirely different, as now we are taking Skyfox camera footage of his motorcade taking him to his arraignment that will be happening tomorrow there. And first, he will be up on his so-called Trump Force One.
This is like a spectacle, and a magnificent spectacle. Guy Debord, who wrote The Society of the Spectacle, talks about terrorism and who is adjudged to be a terrorist. How the portrayal here is of villainy. This is like, you know, those of us that are my age, and that would have to include me, know that a helicopter shot of a motorcade evokes but one image: O.J. Simpson on the run. The beginning of Trump the criminal has begun. It's interesting, though, because both sides can make those claims. Of course, one of Trump's most successful maxims was, you know, crooked Hillary and the whole lock her up tirade. But now what we're seeing is Donald Trump recast as criminal. But even that may escalate and amplify his power. Guy Debord, the story of terrorism is written by the state, and it is therefore highly instructive. Compared with terrorism, everything else must be acceptable, or in any case, more rational and more democratic. So ultimately, what's being claimed here is that Trump is especially criminal, more criminal than your everyday politician, more criminal than crooked Hillary, more criminal than the Biden family. Now, like, these are not claims that I'm making. I'm talking about what we all understand now through the Twitter files, for example, about deep state intervention and censorship of public information, including the censorship of truthful information. We're talking about a state that is able to, without consciousness or without conscience, lock up Julian Assange while still declaring that the imprisonment, and indeed was it murder, of a Washington Post journalist is somehow unconscionable. So we're talking about who has the power to criminalize, who has the power to murder, who has the power to declare war. And I feel that ultimately this spectacle, this is exactly what I thought it would be. If you can, we show in this feed, like the ticker tape, the airplane, it's glorious, but where is the silence? Where is the moment of reflection? Where is the moment of personal awakening? We've got a presentation on Donald Trump. I think I'd like to stay with this a bit longer. What do you think, Gareth?
Yeah.
I feel pretty confident in all this stuff.
I think what's so interesting about all this is, you know, we've spoken about the similarities and corollaries to the Hillary Clinton case with regard to Russiagate and the Steele dossier. But what we don't talk about maybe is about the law, and when you're talking about what maybe Jon Stewart was saying, or people on the left are saying, well, you've got to obey the law, and everyone's got, you know, that's why Trump deserves this. But like, when we know things about, for example, and we talk about it so much, but about senators and Congress people owning stocks and shares in the companies that they regulate, we know that they're making millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
In what is presumed, or what is apparently legal. Now, should that be legal? No, it shouldn't. So when you're talking about the law, yes, fine, okay, if he's guilty of this and it's only him that's guilty of this and the Democrats aren't guilty of anything, then maybe he deserves it. But there are things going on that should be prosecuted,
That's
should be
right.
illegal.
I mean, I think that is Guy Debord's point about terrorism, Gareth, who is legitimised in doing that. And look at that. They've arranged it. Look, he's being given a hero's departure. There are flags. There are cars pulled over. You know, Trump understands narrative. Trump understands spectacle at least as well as they do. So this is sort of like a war being fought in the world of propaganda, I would say. Soren Kierkegaard, one of the fathers of existentialism, says, the tyrant dies and his rule is over. The martyr dies and his rule begins. What they are at risk of doing, even while condemning Trump, is creating a new chapter in his mythology, because the simple fact is they cannot attack truthfully, authentically, or in good faith. Because let's have a look now at some statistics around wealth inequality. We'll leave that magnificent and soon to become iconic shot of Trump's departure to his own arraignment. The richest 1% make 84 times as much as the bottom 20%. The US average income before taxes and public assistance by household income group in 2019. Just have a look at that little graph that shows you how wealth inequality in the country of the United States plays out. Average incomes for the richest Americans have skyrocketed. You know that during that pandemic period, it was beneficial for the most powerful interests in society, big tech, big pharma, big government, detrimental, not just for the poorest Americans, but for ordinary Americans, for ordinary business people. Look at the last 3 administrations in the United States of America, and in a sense, we are all part of the United States of America now, unless we are in Stalingrad or Beijing. Under Obama admits 95% of income gains go to the top 1%. That's in 2013. Trump in 2020, the top 1% of Americans have taken 50 trillion from the bottom 90%. Biden in 2022, the 10 richest men doubled their fortunes in the pandemic while the incomes of 99% of humanity fall. Look at those facts. Look at the bigger picture. And if you think we couldn't hit you with any more facts on this special day, let's turn to Professor Noam Chomsky, who talking about distraction. And this is what I believe this is. And I respect your opinion. If you believe that Trump is the answer, then I'm glad that you found your savior. And maybe at some point I'll get on board. But, you know, there you go. Have a look at that statistic. Top 1% of Americans took 50 trillion from the bottom 90%. Listen to this from Chomsky on the strategy of distraction. The primary element of social control is the strategy of distraction, which is to divert public attention from important issues and changes determined by the political and economic elites. Gareth was just talking about people in Congress owning stocks and shares in companies they're supposed to regulate. By the technique of flood or flooding, continuous distractions and insignificant information. Distraction strategy is also essential to prevent the public interest in the essential knowledge in the area of the science, economics, psychology, neurobiology, and cybernetics, all information that we could call that the hermeneutics of the powerful there, information that's kept only to them. Maintaining public attention, diverted away from the real social problems, captivated by matters of no real importance, keep the public busy. Busy, busy, busy. No time to think, back to farm and other animals. That's extraordinary from Chomsky, because whatever you think about Trump, you have to recognize that both sides are benefiting from this spectacle. Then, look at this. I thought this phrase, this is astonishing to me. Let me know in the chat and the comments where you thought this originated from. I thought this was from someone like David Icke or Alex Jones. It's actually from Noam Chomsky. Create problems, then offer solutions. This method is also called problem, reaction, solution. Cast your mind back for a couple of years now, and this is not conspiracy theory stuff that I'm declaring here. This is just notice how events chronologically unfolded. So, it creates a problem, a situation, referred to cause some reaction in the audience. Could be a war, could be another kind of crisis. To create some reaction in the audience. So this is the principle of the steps that you want to accept. For example, let it unfold and intensify urban violence or arrange for bloody attacks in order that the public is the applicant's security, laws and policies to the detriment of freedom, or create an economic crisis to accept as a necessary evil retreat of social rights and the dismantling of public services. A lovely little 10-point plan on distraction by Professor Chomsky, who is about as left-wing. He's probably far, far right. He'll probably be with me in Mar-a-Lago, Professor Noam Chomsky.
Golfing holiday.
Should we have a look at Professor Noam Chomsky boarding a plane now to his around? Here's Donald Trump ascending the stairs to the Air Force One of the anti-establishment elite Trump jet. There he goes. And he made it to the top. Is he saluting? He's waving. Fantastic. Iconic shots in real time here on Stay Free with Russell Brand, available on Rumble. Of course, we're stealing that footage from Fox News because we're truly radical, piratical buccaneers of news media, keeping you free. Yeah, we're pirates, baby. We're literally pirating right now. In a minute, we're going to be talking to Brianha Joy Gray, or Brianha Gray. I should get her name right. She's a guest on our show. Yes. Brianha Joy Gray. It's a historic day. Tensions are high. This is Trump arrest o'clock, baby. We're going to be talking to her about the rise of populism and the inability of centralized, corrupt political organizations ever to address the needs of the American public and the global population. Should we have a look at earlier on today, we made an in-depth piece about the nature of the charges leveled at Trump and the level of ineptitude and corruption that led to his rise in the first place. Here's the news. No, here's the effing news.